Imagine a grand, dimly lit hall at the very heart of Tudor England. The sound of a gentle breeze rustling outside stained glass windows, the faint crackle of a dying fire, and the faint scent of melting beeswax candles. It is the mid-1500s, and King Henry VIII, that most famous and fascinating of monarchs, lies in his bedchamber. A king who had once been strong, tall, and full of restless energy, is now an aging ruler, wrapped in rich velvet blankets that seem far too heavy for him. By this point in his life, Henry is no longer the dashing prince who once jousted in tournaments, nor the hopeful young monarch who danced and hunted across his green lands. Instead, he is tired. Deep in his grand wooden four-poster bed, surrounded by embroidered curtains, his body feels burdened by years of extravagant feasting, heavy drink, and the occasional raging illness that never truly left him. Physicians pad softly across the wooden floor, their hands full of strange tonics and cloths soaked in herbal brews. Whispering servants come and go like ghosts, careful not to wake him too suddenly. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the ticking of a clock deep within the palace. Its gentle rhythm reminds everyone present that time passes for all, even for Henry VIII. And so Henry's last days drift by in this quiet haze. It's a far cry from the grand processions and public showmanship that defined his reign. Instead of gilded halls filled with cheering courtiers, his world is now much smaller and cozier. His warm bed, his most trusted advisors seated nearby, and the gentle murmur of fires burning into the sleepy hours of the night. By this stage in his life, Henry VIII is plagued by ailments that seem endless. Some say his legs were riddled with painful ulcers that oozed and never quite healed. Others whispered about gout making it almost impossible for him to move. Even his once booming voice had softened to a tired hush. Eating too much rich food and indulging too often in mead and wine had finally caught up with him. Though history paints Henry as a force of nature, here he is simply a tired, aching old man craving rest. And then came the most curious part of his passing, an end so peaceful, yet so peculiar. Historians have long debated what truly took him. Some say an infection crept through his blood like a dark shadow. Others argue it was a stroke that finally silenced his weary heart. Even all these centuries later, the exact cause of Henry VIII's death feels like one of those gentle mysteries you might ponder just before drifting into sleep. A puzzle that never quite needs solving. And so, as the last winter days of January 1547 drew close, Henry VIII, once one of Europe's most powerful monarchs, faded into the quiet halls of Whitehall Palace. There was no grand battle to end him, no dramatic twist. Only a tired, aging king, tucked into a warm bed, surrounded by murmuring doctors, as the world outside moved softly onward. That sleepy, candlelit scene is how this larger-than-life king's final chapter came to a gentle close. An ending as hushed as the gentle breath of someone slipping into a well-earned slumber. Picture for a moment the gentle rhythm of life in Tudor England. Outside Henry VIII's palaces, village life moves at its own sleepy pace. Days begin before sunrise with the faint clatter of wooden buckets being carried across cobblestone lanes. Farmers tend to sleepy animals, and bakers slip warm loaves into brick ovens. Life back then unfolded slowly, one wooden creak and gentle breath at a time. And in the great halls of Henry's royal court, time itself felt different, measured not by harsh mechanical clocks, but by the gentle chiming of bells and the soft turning of an hourglass. Fires crackled in their hearths as servants padded barefoot across worn wooden floors, keeping careful track of each sleepy hour so the king would never be disturbed too early. The scent of rosemary and thyme from nearby gardens would rise into the rooms, and a hush would often settle over the household as everyone fell into an unspoken rhythm. Time in Tudor England was less like the strict schedules we know today, and more like the rise and fall of a gentle tide, pulled by the seasons, shaped by the light of the sun, and guided by small, sleepy routines. Mornings began with soft prayers whispered in private chapels. Evenings concluded with slow, candlelit feasts that would stretch into the quiet hours of the night. The king himself was not rushed by 100 tasks as modern people often are. Even Henry VIII, who had ruled with fierce energy in his youth, allowed himself these slower, softer days as his years passed. The clock towers would chime low and deep across his royal palaces, and courtiers would listen to them like one listens to rain outside a cozy window. And so, Tudor time was felt rather than measured, sleepy and cyclical, full of gentle cues. The scent of baking bread told them morning had come. The distant braying of farm animals told them noon was near. The sleepy flicker of a candle's flame told them night was drawing close. Time moved like a gentle breath across the centuries, peaceful and unhurried, and that softness wrapped even the most powerful monarchs like a warm cloak as they drifted into their gentle routines. Imagine stepping into a dim Tudor chamber as night begins to settle. Thick velvet curtains are drawn across wooden windows, muffling the distant sound of a sleepy village. A single candle flickers gently in the corner, casting warm pools of light that dance across polished wooden beams and rich embroidered bed hangings. The air is calm and comforting, touched with the faint scent of lavender, tucked into linen chests to soothe tired bodies. In Henry VIII's world, nights were all about softness and warmth, especially for those lucky enough to dwell in his royal courts. Picture a bed so grand it looks like a ship afloat in a sea of softness, plump feather mattresses stacked high and covered with embroidered coverlets, pillows encased in smooth linen as gentle as a breeze, and blankets woven from the warmest wools. Even the floor was strewn with thick, fragrant rushes that whispered against your slippers as you walked, making each step sound sleepy and slow. Beyond these royal bedchambers, the halls were draped in tapestries that dulled every sound to a hush. Sleepy servants moved as if gliding on air, careful to keep their voices low as they brought gentle drinks or whispered messages. Every surface held a kind of comforting softness, from the smooth oak of the furniture to the gentle folds of silk and velvet that framed the sleeping king. And although Henry VIII was a monarch of great power and drama in the light of day, by nighttime, his world felt like a nest of quiet luxury. His chambers were places where the grandeur of his reign melted into softness. Even the grandest royal residences, palaces like Hampton Court or Whitehall, became cozy and sleepy once the sun slipped behind the horizon. If you close your eyes, you might almost hear the sleepy sigh of fabric as someone adjusts the bed covers. You can sense the softness in the gentle hum of embers in the fireplace. Here, all the grandness of courtly life becomes wrapped in gentle folds of velvet, and everyone, even the mighty king, is simply someone seeking the comfort of a good night's rest. And so Tudor nights, for all their splendor, held this sleepy magic. Soft fabrics and soft shadows invited even the most restless soul to embrace the hush of evening and drift peacefully into sleep. Picture yourself gliding through the moonlit halls of Hampton Court Palace, where the Tudor past still whispers softly in every shadow. Night has fallen over the sprawling gardens and graceful brick walls, and a hush settles over the royal residence like a gentle mist. The world outside is asleep, and inside, the halls seem to come alive with stories too quiet for the daylight. It's here, in these cozy, candlelit corridors, that the gentle ghost stories take shape. Not the kind that leap out with a chill, but the sleepy, almost nostalgic kind, where you can imagine figures from long ago strolling past in silken robes. Many say that Hampton Court is home to restless spirits who cannot help but linger, forever wrapped up in the gentle folds of history. There's talk of Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife, who is said to wander a particular gallery in the dead of night. But even her ghost is more sorrowful than frightening, a faint shadow glimpsed through warm pools of light. And then there are the soft whispers of servants and ladies-in-waiting, who glided through these halls centuries ago, their gentle steps forever remembered by the old wooden floors. And as you wander further into these sleepy spaces, the sense of calm deepens. The huge tapestries seem to absorb every sound. Even the distant rustle of an owl outside the leaded windows feels muffled. The ghostly tales here are less about fear and more about memories, faint echoes of lives that once filled these rooms with hushed conversation and candlelight. Hampton Court, after dark, is like a sleepy storybook where time itself slows down, allowing these gentle spirits to come and go as they please. And far from feeling haunted in a frightening way, the palace at night seems wrapped in a kind of peaceful enchantment. It's as if the past, knowing it is long gone, simply lingers like a gentle sigh in the darkened halls. And so, when the wind sighs outside and the flicker of a candle throws sleepy shapes against the wall, one might just imagine a Tudor ghost pausing to listen, to hear the quiet world, and drift, like all of us, into the restful hush of the night. Imagine stepping out into a Tudor garden as the last light of day melts into a gentle lavender dusk. The royal gardens, especially those Henry VIII loved, were places of peace, where the scent of roses and lavender blended with the crisp green of neatly clipped hedges. Paths of smooth gravel wound their way between sleepy patches of chamomile, and wooden benches sat waiting beneath leafy arbors. Even the hum of the bees seems drowsy here, as if they too are preparing to nestle into sleep. Henry VIII and his courtiers often took slow, thoughtful walks in these gardens. Even when the king was burdened with his many duties, a quiet stroll among the carefully trimmed rose bushes and gentle fountains could soothe his restless mind. The gardens weren't just showpieces. They were sanctuaries where one could feel the day melt away into softness. As you wander these gardens in your imagination, picture the gentle splash of water as it tumbles into a marble basin, the distant murmur of birds settling into their nests, and the slight rustle of a squirrel brushing past. The very trees seem sleepy too, their green arms reaching up into a warm, dusky sky, as if cradling the peaceful evening. And when Henry VIII himself ambled through these paths, even his most weighty thoughts would grow lighter. The stresses of royal decrees and court intrigue would fade into the background, replaced by the sweetness of the breeze and the softness of moss underfoot. Courtiers would walk alongside him at a respectful distance, careful to keep their conversations light and gentle. Nightfall would arrive gradually, as gardens wrapped themselves in deep blue shadows and the world became deliciously quiet. The sleepy silence was broken only by a faraway church bell or the soft sighing of the trees. Even powerful monarchs found these gardens a gentle retreat, places where they could leave their grand personas at the gate and simply be one more soul cradled by the stillness. And so, as we imagine these quiet gardens tonight, fragrant, drowsy, and dreamy, and steeped in gentle royal memories, they offer the perfect lullaby for a sleepy listener hoping to slip into dreams. For if even Henry VIII could find solace on these slow, sleepy paths, perhaps we too can let go and wander into a deep, restful slumber. Imagine the soft glow of candlelight reflected on long wooden tables, where Henry VIII's courtiers gather for a late supper. Though these feasts were lavish affairs by day, in the hush of evening they take on a quieter, cozier air. Flickering wax drips down tall candlesticks, and the gentle murmur of voices rises and falls like a lullaby. Platters arrive, heavy with roasted meats, but here they seem almost too rich, more like a final indulgence before dreams than a boisterous banquet. At each place, polished goblets catch the light, filled with spiced wine or sweet mead. A gentle servant glides by with a silver tray of meat pies, its crust so crisp you can almost hear the soft crackle before the first bite. The scent of cinnamon and clove warms the air, mingling with the subtle smoke of the hearth. Every bite is taken slowly, deliberately. Courtiers want to savor the final moments of wakefulness before they slip into slumber. Soft music drifts from a nearby corner, where a lone lute player brushes strings in hushed melodies. The notes are lullaby-like, drifting through the hall and wrapping around the diners like a blanket. Even the king himself leans back in his chair, a gentle half-smile on his lips as he listens. There is no clattering of armor or shouting of toasts here. Only the slow, satisfying rhythm of plates being passed and the soft clink of silver. As the feast winds down, platters grow emptier and voices grow quieter. A final horn of ale is lifted in a low toast, to health, to peace, and to the coming rest. Plates are cleared by nimble hands that move like shadows, careful not to disturb anyone's calm. The last crumb is brushed away, and the cloth is folded like a soft farewell. In these sleepy feasts, one can almost taste the hush of night itself. The luxury of the Tudor table transforms into a gentle prelude to sleep, as if saying, "Rest now, for tomorrow brings new duties." The fire in the hearth dims to glowing embers, and the hall falls into a final quiet, save for a soft sigh of contentment. And so, with full bellies and tired bones, the king and his court rise from their seats. The memory of this gentle feast carries them forward, straight into the tender embrace of a deep, well-earned sleep. As candlelight dances across polished oak panels, the great hall of the Tudor court settles into a gentle hush. The day's clamor, trumpets, proclamations, bustling courtiers, has faded like a distant memory. In its place, there are only the soft murmurs of a world winding down, voices barely above a breath, and the faint rustle of silk against stone floors. Imagine servants moving like shadows, gliding between tapestries that swallow sound whole. They carry folded cushions or small platters of spiced wine, pausing only to bow with quiet grace. Every footstep is measured, every motion unhurried, as if the very air were laced with drowsiness. Here, even laughter is a gentle exhale, tucked tenderly between whispered courtesies. Noblemen and ladies lean close in clusters, their conversations soft and low. A gentle joke drifts on the air, about a duke's mismatched socks or a favorite hunting hound's sleepy snore. Yet even humor here feels like a lullaby, a sweet note before slumber. Their voices ebb and flow in soothing waves, carrying tales of distant journeys and whispered promises of tomorrow's pageantry, but always in the softest tone, mindful of the court's dreamy evening calm. In one corner, a harpist plucks a single mellow chord, letting it resonate like a sigh. The note hangs in the cool air, then melts away into silence, leaving behind a slightest echo of something serene. Occasionally, the faint scraping of a quill interrupts the hush, as a scribe records the day's final decrees by candlelight, each letter formed with careful slowness, each word a gentle testament to a reign winding toward rest. Above it all, the high beams of the ceiling cradle the warm glow of lanterns, their iron frames casting sleepy patterns on stone. Shadows flicker like drifting dreams, and every sound seems softened by the hush of woven tapestries and heavy draperies. In these quiet moments, the grandeur of court life yields to simple comfort, a warm glow, soft voices, and the promise of peaceful sleep. And so, as the night deepens, the Tudor court becomes a cocoon of muted comfort. Even the most powerful figures, royal advisors and visiting dignitaries, are wrapped in this delicate stillness. Their whispered words paint pictures of loyalty and intrigue, yet everything remains gentle, as if the court itself exhales a collective yawn before surrendering to the calm of the night. With soft murmurs barely stirring the air, the court drifts closer to dusk's final embrace, ready at last to rest until the dawn calls them once more into the light of a new day. As the last embers glow low in palace hearths, a hush settles gently over Henry VIII's realm. The grand banners, hanging in chilly corridors, droop into stillness, and every torch's flame curls softly before fading. In these tranquil hours, the kingdom itself seems to breathe out, exhaling the day's busyness into the night sky. Picture moonlight spilling across slate rooftops, turning chimney stacks to silver silhouettes against a navy canvas. The cobblestone streets lie silent now, save for the occasional patter of guards' boots as they make one final round. Their lanterns carve warm circles of light, but beyond their glow, all is shadow and quiet. Even the usual calls of night watch are softer, a whispered reassurance that all is well before sleep fully takes hold. Inside the palace, deep within tapestry-lined halls, courtiers slumber in featherbeds, their dreams woven of courtly dances and distant hunting grounds. Advisors once hushed debates over politics now rest their thoughts, tucked away until dawn. Servants move no more. The chill of morning tasks is still far off. All that remains is a soft, dreamy calm, as if time itself has paused to linger in the beauty of stillness. And then there is the gentle memory of Henry VIII himself, the once mighty king, whose life was marked by thunderous ceremony and bold decrees, now simply lies in quiet repose, an echo of a life that shaped nations. His legacy drifts through these empty halls like a soft melody. The palaces he built, the gardens he loved, the whispers of intrigue that once crackled in daylight. In the night's hush, those echoes become lullabies, inviting the listener to let go of wakefulness and surrender to rest. Beyond the castle walls, the fields and villages of Tudor England sleep under a blanket of stars. Crickets chirp in rhythmic harmony, and the distant call of an owl offers a gentle lull. Even the River Thames moves with soft certainty, its waters reflecting the pale moon like rippling glass. All creation here seems wrapped in slumber, waiting for dawn's tender light to stir life once more. And so, dear listener, as you drift alongside this kingdom at rest, allow the soft silence to cradle you. Let the memory of ancient halls and sleepy gardens guide you toward your own dreams. For if a mighty king and his vast realm can find peace in the still of night, then surely we too can slip into a deep and gentle sleep.